I was in a deep, deep depression in this house while the splits were happening, while the divorces were happening. Every split happened when we were living in this hash knife house.
I'm in shock. I don't really know what to say here. I don't know what to say to her. I can't tell. I don't know. I can't. It's not really computing. Really, it's not really. It's just not making sense right now. I don't know what to say.
Weird or different not having the help of the whole family for a move?
This is just a big announcement.
It's hard to know something and then to have it actually happen.
For years, Maddie Brown stayed silent while her family's chaos played out on camera. Viewers witnessed the tears, arguments, and carefully edited confessions. Maddie always seemed to linger on the edge of the storm. She was close enough to be affected, but far enough to avoid being pulled under. Until now, her silence, which once served as protection, has become a tool to shatter the illusion her father and Robin spent years creating. What started as a few quiet posts on Instagram quickly transformed into a digital wake-up call that even the producers of Sister Wives couldn't script. Fans who had followed the family for over a decade felt the ground shift beneath them as Maddie's words exposed wounds the show tried to keep hidden. It began with a single message, a vague, almost cryptic statement about being lied about for the whole world to hear. Within hours, that line sparked a fan uprising. People examined every detail, linking her tone to years of tension they had sensed but never fully understood. For the first time, Maddie wasn't just the daughter in the background, she was telling her own story. Her version did not match the polished one Cody and Robin had been promoting. Her voice revealed an exhaustion that comes from years of manipulation disguised as love, and from realizing that the truth she grew up believing was merely another form of control. Clearly, something had snapped behind the scenes. The move, the new house, the public smiles, all of it felt empty next to Maddie's raw honesty. Fans began asking questions that Cody and Robin couldn't easily evade. Why now? Why would Maddie, one of the most private Brown children, risk backlash to speak out? The answer seemed clear. She'd finally reached her limit. She was tired of being portrayed as ungrateful, tired of being told her memories were incorrect, and tired of watching her family fall apart while the cameras pretended it was healing. Just like that, the quiet daughter became the whistleblower. Her story was not just another headline in a reality TV cycle, it was the unfiltered truth breaking through years of carefully crafted lies. The calm was over, the explosion had started. The latest episode opened with the familiar rhythm that the audience had come to expect. There was another family move, another speech about new beginnings, and another silent promise that this time things would be different. But as the episode went on, it felt repetitive. A storm rolled in, a real tornado twisting through the Arizona sky, as if fate itself had come to disrupt the Browns' lives. Yet, when the dust settled, the damage was only superficial. The family gathered, exchanged tense smiles, and the moment passed. It was the kind of dramatized chaos that Sister Wives had mastered, an artificial sense of danger without any lasting impact. Viewers waited for a revelation that never arrived. Then came the typical travel problem, the familiar shredded tire that seemed to hit every road trip this family took. The pattern was so expected, it almost felt planned, as if the universe knew the producers needed a storyline. But underneath the laughter and the forced tension, something else was happening, something no one was mentioning. Cody's comments seemed distant, Robin's smile felt too practiced, and their words echoed off the empty walls of yet another new beginning. For a family that had lost nearly everything, wives, children, reputation, their energy on screen felt oddly triumphant, almost smug. Then there was the house. The lavish, sprawling home that Robin and Cody proudly called a blessing, but quietly admitted they couldn't afford. 5,000 square feet of denial, paid for with money from the sale of Coyote Pass, their once sacred dream property. Watching them showcase rooms they hadn't earned felt like seeing two people decorate a sinking ship. Fans could sense the hypocrisy in every line of dialogue. While they talked about gratitude and faith, their choices shouted desperation. This wasn't a fresh start, it was a cover-up for everything that had already fallen apart. By the end of the episode, the audience felt an odd emptiness. Nothing had truly changed. The tornado moved on, the tire was repaired, the mansion sparkled, and the same lies echoed under the same roof. But what fans didn't see on camera, what was happening miles away, off-screen and out of the show's control, was about to turn everything upside down. It started quietly, just a few Instagram stories on a calm weekend morning. There was no big announcement, no clickbait build-up, just Maddie sitting in her own space, miles away from the cameras that had shaped her childhood. The questions from followers seemed innocent enough, updates about her kids, life in North Carolina, how she manages it all. But then someone asked about her father. The moment felt casual at first, the kind of question she usually ignored. This time she didn't. Instead, she posted a sentence that hit like a sledgehammer. "Your dad saying lies about you for the entire world to hear teaches you real quick. No context, no explanation. Just truth, raw and unfiltered." That single line opened a vault the show had spent years locking shut. Within minutes, screenshots began spreading across fan pages. People couldn't believe what they were reading. Maddie Brown, the quiet one, the peacekeeper, had finally spoken. And it wasn't a vague jab or a cryptic emoji, it was a clear statement of betrayal. To longtime viewers, it confirmed what they had suspected for years. The fractures inside the Brown family were much deeper than the show suggested. Her words carried a weight that only someone raised amidst emotional turmoil could understand. As fans analyzed her tone, theories exploded online. Was she referring to Cody's recent comments about her mother? Was it the ongoing feud about loyalty and obedience that had simmered since Christine left? Or was it something bigger, something personal that the cameras had conveniently edited out? Each theory painted a more troubling picture, one where Cody's public charm hid years of manipulation and gaslighting. Viewers began rewatching old episodes, revisiting Cody's justifications, his comments about disobedient children, his self-pitying monologues. Suddenly everything made sense. For the first time, Maddie wasn't just responding to the narrative, she was changing it, and her tone made it clear she wasn't seeking sympathy or attention. It sounded like release, the kind that comes after years of holding your breath. Her story wasn't an emotional outburst, it was a quiet reckoning, and for a family that built its fortune on the illusion of unity, that reckoning was dangerous. But what Maddie said next wasn't just emotional, it was explosive. When one follower asked whether Robin had ever reached out or tried to mend things, Maddie didn't hesitate. No vague response, no sugarcoating. Her answer was short, sharp, and final. "Robin is a liar. The end." Then came the line that would set the internet ablaze: "If her mouth is moving, she's manipulating." It wasn't just a jab, it was an indictment. For years, fans had accused Robin of being two-faced, but hearing it from one of the Brown children felt like confirmation straight from the source. Maddie's tone was unshaken, calm even, but it carried the weight of someone who'd seen too much to pretend anymore. That single sentence shattered whatever was left of the fragile illusion around Robin Brown. The woman who had once branded herself as the family's peacemaker, the devoted wife, the mother who just wanted harmony, was being exposed as something darker. Maddie's accusation wasn't emotional guesswork, it was the voice of a daughter who'd watched manipulation dressed up as compassion for far too long. She didn't rant or accuse Robin of specific acts, she didn't have to. Her silence between words said more than a list of examples ever could. The implication was simple: everything Robin says, every tear, every apology comes with an angle. Viewers who'd followed Sister Wives from the beginning didn't need a reminder of Robin's long-running victim narrative. Every conflict seemed to orbit her feelings. When Christine or Janelle set boundaries, Robin cried about being excluded. When the family broke apart, she mourned that no one tried hard enough to understand her. Even in confessionals, she framed herself as the one who suffered most, betrayed by jealous sister wives, misunderstood by the public, burdened by a husband's fractured family. It was a pattern so consistent it had become her identity. And now Maddie was saying what everyone else had been too afraid to. Those tears weren't empathy, they were strategy. The irony was brutal. The woman who built her reputation on sincerity might have been performing sincerity all along. Fans who once defended her began to question every emotional breakdown, every trembling voice, every moment she claimed to be trying to hold the family together. Because if Maddie was right, Robin hadn't been holding the family together, she'd been holding them hostage under the guise of love. But the truth about Robin's past might explain why Maddie feels this way. Before Sister Wives ever made her a household name, whispers about Robin's controlling streak had already started to circulate. Old acquaintances, distant relatives, even former friends from her pre-Brown life described her as someone who couldn't stand to be out of the spotlight. Rumors suggest she had a long history of jealousy, particularly when attention shifted away from her. One alleged account claimed that even among her siblings, Robin competed for validation, turning small disagreements into loyalty tests. She wanted to be adored, understood, and above all believed. It was a pattern that over time began to look less like insecurity and more like manipulation dressed in warmth. Reports claim that long before the cameras ever rolled, Robin was already rewriting narratives around her relationships. Friends recall stories of sudden fallouts, of Robin positioning herself as the victim every time a friendship ended. She was never the problem, at least not according to her. Those same reports describe her uncanny ability to shift blame, to make others feel guilty for doubting her version of events. It's a skill that would later make her almost untouchable in the reality TV world, a woman who could cry on cue, win sympathy, and twist confrontation into compassion. Fans now wonder if that talent was honed long before she ever met Cody Brown. Allegedly, Robin's ambition wasn't limited to survival, it was strategic. Even before joining the plural marriage, she reportedly sought to control how others perceived her, crafting a story where she was always misunderstood, always trying, always the one who just wanted peace. It's a role that earns endless forgiveness, even when her choices create the very chaos she claims to fear. When she married into the Brown family, that same instinct to shape perception found its biggest stage. Every interview, every confessional, every tear became a chance to reinforce the narrative she'd been perfecting her whole life. By the time Maddie's comments hit social media, fans began to connect dots, stretching back years. Was Robin's rise within the family truly about love, or was it about control, wrapped in gentleness? The past suddenly made the present look predictable. Maddie's accusations didn't come out of nowhere, they echoed a pattern long rumored but rarely spoken aloud. And as those whispers turned into a chorus online, one truth became clear: Robin wasn't the only one Maddie called out. It wasn't a sudden explosion that woke Maddie up, it was something quieter, something as simple as a book. During the long stillness of 2020, when the world shut down and everyone was forced into reflection, Maddie started reading about parenting. She'd just become a mother herself, and she wanted to do everything right. But as she turned the pages, what she found wasn't comfort, it was recognition. The traits the authors warned against, the subtle ways emotional manipulation hides behind authority, the guilt masked as guidance, it all felt too familiar. She wasn't reading about strangers, she was reading about her childhood. In interviews and Q&As, she's hinted that those books cracked open something she'd buried for years. She began to see how love could be conditional, how loyalty could be weaponized. What she once thought of as rules or structure started to look like control. When Cody preached about obedience, when he made affection dependent on agreement, it wasn't parenting, it was domination disguised as devotion. Maddie said it was like looking back through a two-way mirror. She could finally see herself as the child who had spent years earning affection that should have been freely given. Then came isolation. The pandemic meant fewer visits, less filming, more space to think, away from her father's booming voice, and Robin's emotional theatrics. Maddie started to understand how her perception had been shaped by people who thrived on keeping others off balance. For the first time, she wasn't trapped in the rhythm of their manipulation, she could observe it. And the more distance she gained, the clearer it became what she'd accepted as normal was deeply broken. The emotional hierarchy, the guilt trips, the constant narrative of who was in and who was against the family, it was all designed to protect one man's ego. Friends say she began journaling during that period, documenting moments from her childhood that suddenly made sense in painful new ways. Every entry chipped away at the illusion of the perfect plural family she'd been raised to defend. And when she compared her own parenting instincts to her father's methods, the truth hit her hardest of all: she didn't want to repeat the cycle. She couldn't, because once she saw what had been done in the name of love, there was no going back. When Maddie finally spoke about Mary, it wasn't with hesitation, it was with finality. In one quiet moment during her kanda, she dropped a sentence that froze fans in their tracks. Mary Brown, she said, had been harsh, and she would never be allowed around my kids. It wasn't said in anger, it sounded more like a boundary drawn after years of silence. The comment might have seemed simple, but for longtime viewers it carried decades of weight. Because this wasn't just one daughter speaking out, it was part of a much larger pattern, one that other Brown kids had already begun to expose. McKelty had previously hinted at similar experiences, using careful words like difficult and controlling. Pidon, on the other hand, didn't bother with diplomacy. He called out behavior he described as dangerous and said he was relieved when contact ended. Taken together, the siblings' stories painted a portrait that didn't match the smiling image fans had seen for years. The more they spoke, the more the public began connecting dots between moments that had once seemed harmless on camera: Mary's biting tone, the sharp looks, the subtle power plays. What was once brushed off as tough love started to feel like something much darker. Still, Maddie's phrasing, harsh, left room for questions. Fans debated what exactly that meant. Some suggested emotional manipulation, others thought it hinted at verbal cruelty or intimidation. The internet swelled with theories, each one echoing the same underlying concern: what really went on when the cameras weren't rolling. Reddit threads exploded, old episodes were rewatched with new scrutiny, and every awkward silence suddenly seemed like evidence. Yet Maddie, true to form, didn't elaborate. She didn't need to. The tone in her voice said enough. It wasn't speculation for her. It was experience. The choice to cut off contact was her way of rewriting the family rulebook. It wasn't rebellion, it was protection. In one statement, she drew a line between her past and her children's future. And the other siblings' agreement only amplified the message. This wasn't an isolated rift, but a reckoning years in the making. The fans could only guess what harsh truly meant, but for Maddie and her siblings, it was a word heavy with history. And what's chilling is where that behavior might have come from. Rumors and old testimonies from those who left the AUB paint a grim picture of that culture. It was a community built on hierarchy: men above women, adults above children, God above all. Corporal punishment wasn't just accepted, it was expected. It trained children to associate respect with fear. And when fear becomes the foundation of love, it shapes how you treat the next generation. That's the tragic math of generational trauma. It doesn't vanish when someone leaves the faith. It lingers in tone, in reactions, in the way authority feels natural even when it's wrong. Mary Brown didn't invent the cruelty, she inherited it. Long before Sister Wives became a hit, long before the glossy family image and reality TV fame, Mary grew up in a world that normalized fear as discipline. She was raised in the Apostolic United Brethren, a sect that preached obedience through control and claimed pain as proof of devotion. In that closed system, love and punishment were tangled together. Children were taught that suffering built character, that questioning authority meant betraying faith. Stories from former members describe households where silence was safety, and correction often meant physical pain disguised as moral guidance. So when fans heard Maddie call Mary harsh, some began connecting those deeper dots, because if Mary had been raised in a home where obedience meant survival, it's possible she learned to equate control with care. Reports and discussions among ex-members often echo this same cycle. Those raised under emotional domination often repeat it without realizing. It's not an excuse, but it's context, a painful reminder of how inherited trauma mutates from one generation to the next. For Maddie, that realization carried its own heartbreak. She wasn't just confronting Mary's cruelty, she was uncovering the roots of her entire family's dysfunction. Every controlling outburst, every manipulative guilt trip, it all traced back to a system that prized submission over empathy. The AUB taught its children that love had conditions, and those lessons rippled through the Brown household long after they left. Maddie's quiet recognition of that truth, how deep it went, how much it cost, wasn't just an accusation, it was grief. Because understanding where the pain came from didn't make it easier to forgive, and which makes her next statement even more heartbreaking. When Maddie finally spoke about her father, her voice didn't shake. There was no anger left, only clarity. After years of chaos, disappointment, and emotional exhaustion, she said the words that marked the quiet end of a long war: "I don't want the storm back in my life." It wasn't spiteful. It was release. For so long, Cody and Robin's presence had meant unpredictability. One week they wanted to mend things, the next they were stirring old wounds in the name of family unity. Maddie had learned the hard way that peace with them came at the cost of her own sanity. So she stopped chasing it. In her world now, there are no loyalty tests, no manipulation disguised as fatherly concern. Her days revolve around her kids, her husband Caleb, and the small moments that feel safe and simple. Family dinners, laughter that doesn't have to be performed for a camera, love that doesn't hinge on obedience. It's everything her childhood wasn't. Friends describe her as grounded, even protective of that tranquility, like someone who's built a home around the one thing she never had growing up: stability. The noise of the Brown family saga feels distant now, like thunder she can still hear but knows won't reach her. When fans asked if she saw any path to reconciliation, Maddie didn't hesitate. She said she had forgiven but not forgotten. The peace she's found isn't built on pretending nothing happened, it's built on acknowledging exactly what did. Her boundaries aren't defiance, they're survival, and the maturity in her tone was unmistakable. There was no bitterness, no attempt to prove a point, just acceptance. She's no longer trying to fix the people who broke her. In that stillness, Maddie has reclaimed something her father once controlled her story. She no longer defines herself as a daughter in Cody's family, but as a mother shaping a new one. It's the calm after years of emotional turbulence, and while it may sound final, it's not without sorrow, because behind that peace lies another heartbreaking truth. Life has a way of humbling even the strongest people, and for Maddie that moment came quietly, far from cameras, far from the chaos of family drama. After stepping away from the storm, she was faced with a new battle she hadn't chosen: Caleb's declining health. It began with fatigue, headaches, and the kind of worry that creeps in when someone you love starts looking just a little too pale. Then came the diagnosis: kidney disease. Suddenly, the woman who had fought so hard to protect her emotional peace was now fighting for stability in an entirely different way. Maddie has spoken about it sparingly, but those few words reveal everything. The fear, the uncertainty, the recalibration of life's plans. She and Caleb made the difficult decision not to have more children, not out of regret but out of respect for the fragility of what they already had. It wasn't the future they imagined, but it was real, and it was theirs. And in that reality, Maddie found something even more powerful than the need to prove herself. She found perspective. The chaos she'd escaped suddenly seemed small compared to the fight for her husband's health. Fans who followed her updates saw a different side of Maddie. Gone was the frustration that once colored her words about her family. In its place was quiet strength, the kind that comes from enduring, not complaining. Her posts shifted from defending herself to expressing gratitude for ordinary moments: a good day for Caleb, a healthy checkup, her kids' laughter echoing through their home. It was the language of someone who'd outgrown the need to look backward. For Maddie, pain had stopped being a story of victimhood and turned into proof of survival. Every trial, every manipulation, every loss, every harsh word had shaped her into someone who now values calm more than closure. Her resilience became her quiet rebellion. She no longer needed validation from the world she left behind. She had built her own, one rooted in gratitude and love rather than fear and control. Reality TV sells the illusion of truth, the music swells, the camera lingers, and a family's pain becomes entertainment. But Maddie Brown's final words shattered that illusion. After years of silence, she finally pulled back the curtain. When asked how much of Sister Wives was real, her answer was measured: but cutting, the events are real, the emotions are real, but the story, that depends on who's telling it. Months of chaos, heartache, and healing are squeezed into a few dramatic moments, layered with commentary meant to fit a narrative. When Cody and Robin are talking, she said bluntly, "They're lying." And as fans watched her journey unfold, something shifted in them too. The realization hit hard. The real story wasn't on TLC anymore. It was happening off-screen in Maddie's quiet defiance, her healing, her courage to stop performing and start living. And that's when fans realized the show isn't the real story anymore. Off-camera, there were no producers to soften the edges, no music to cue emotion. There was just Maddie, her husband fighting a serious illness, her children learning what peace looks like, and a woman choosing not to repeat the pain that raised her. She wasn't looking for fame anymore, she was looking for freedom, and that perhaps was the most powerful story of all. It wasn't bitterness speaking, it was fatigue, the exhaustion of watching your truth reshaped for ratings. Maddie had learned that the family viewers thought they knew wasn't the family she grew up in. Behind every confessional clip was a web of control, a pattern of manipulation, and the ever-present need for someone to be the villain. And for years that role rotated between the wives, never landing on the man who built the stage. But Maddie's words exposed something deeper: that the story fans saw wasn't just about polygamy, it was about survival inside a system built to silence. Because maybe Sister Wives was never truly about the marriages, the property, or the endless family feuds. Maybe the real story was always about who escaped it, who dared to stop pretending, who found their voice beyond the edits and the spin. Maddie Brown did, and in doing so, she gave fans something no season finale ever could: closure. So now the question is yours. After everything we've seen, after all the lies and heartbreak, has Maddie finally said what everyone else is afraid to? Make sure to subscribe to TLC Soapbox, drop your thoughts in the comments, and stay tuned, because the truth behind Sister Wives might only just be getting started.